The Garden of Eden is a paradise known to us through the Bible. We are unaware of where it exists, but recently there was a shocking discovery in the Garden of Eden. There's several pieces of evidence to support the discovery. What is the truth about the Garden of Eden? What is the evidence backing this discovery? Many people question the existence of the Garden of Eden. They do not completely believe that such a place existed. The arguments put forward by them could stand for a long period, as there should be a geographical place to be written in the Bible. Ancient scientists were on a mission to find the Garden of Eden. They read many texts and constantly looked for hints about the place. They thought that they could have a lead or a discovery of the country where it's located, and then they could find the place. After several failed attempts, the scientists found a unique discovery through DNA study. We can see that the Garden of Eden is mentioned in the book of Genesis. Adam and Eve inhabited the Garden of Eden, and they were later on banished as they violated the laws of God. They happened to be the first human beings created by God. Genesis 2:4-9 KJV. These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. And every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For the Lord had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. But there went up a mist from the earth, and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight, and good for food, and the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Garden of Yahweh and Garden of God are the other names given to the Garden of Eden. These names were found in Ezekiel and Genesis. The word Eden has a different meaning. In Sumerian, there is the word Edith, which refers to blame, whereas in Akkadian, Edenu is the word which can be found. 4 rivers were separated from their original river from the east. There was an idea about a paradise in ancient Middle Eastern mythology. Many people came forward to claim that it was at their place of residence. The Garden of Eden existed. It's confusing to know who to believe. Iraq, Iran, and Bahrain were the most popular places which were claimed to be the Garden of Eden. There was little to no evidence to support the claims of these many places. It was quite uncertain where the Garden of Eden existed, and people were making false claims for their benefit. This leads to further confusion. People wondered whether the garden even existed, and they came to the conclusion that it could never be discovered. There are many in the biblical text, and more people started discovering it. The sign mentioned the rivers. If they could discover which all rivers of today were mentioned then, they could find the Garden of Eden by finding out the places around it. It's in southern Mesopotamia, and the Garden of Eden could be located as mentioned in the book of Genesis. The current southern Mesopotamia is Iraq, and if it's correct, then to the 35 miles north of Iraq, you can see the biblical paradise everyone searched for. In the book of Genesis, the 2 rivers mentioned are River Tigris and the Euphrates. When archaeologists excavated the nearby place to the river, they found a shocking discovery that took them back to 11,000 years ago. It's between the River Tigris and River Euphrates. The place is located. The biblical paradise existed before the rise of the Sumerian, Assyrian, Arab, Persian, and Chaldean civilizations. The rise of organized farming and writing could have originated from this place. The current status of the biblical paradise is beyond imagination, as it's far away from peace. The place is constantly under threat, and it's the complete opposite of what a paradise should look like. Suicide bombers and refugees are what come to the mind of people when modern-day Iraq is mentioned. The place is beyond separable, and no one could believe that there is a possibility that the Garden of Eden might have existed there. Saddam Hussein, one of the exceptional leaders of Iraq, used to give severe punishments to the people of Iraq who stood against him and his rules. It was he and his soldiers who decided to divert the water of the mainland, which eventually caused it to be drained out. It was even declared an ecological catastrophe by the United Nations organization. The scientists couldn't believe the state of the river, as they couldn't even process the fact that Saddam and his soldiers executed this plan. With the help of engineers, they were able to execute the plan of removing the wetlands. They used all their advanced equipment to speed up the process. They even created multiple new rivers, and the Euphrates River was completely diverted to another region. The river Tigris was intercepted. It caused a great amount of environmental harm, and people were also affected by it. But every move of his against the wetland was covered under the excuse that he did all this to have greater availability of wetland. He didn't stop even though he knew that he was harming the environment. As the agenda was extremely political, there was no way that he would admit his decisions were wrong. The environment reached a level where there was not much harm to do. The limit was crossed. By the 1990s, the region was taken over by the Iraqi opposition. The place was covered by rebels. They took over the place forcefully and started living there. It was not at all a peaceful environment. Before Saddam could burn the entire area, he was thrown away from his position. In this short time, there was some scope for the environment to recover from the severe damage. There was more than 45,000 people who were displaced and around 30,000 people who were refugees. They didn't have a place to call home. The deeds of Saddam led to the pathetic condition of the environment and people. Some went to the United States and others were relocated. By 2003, a drop in population was evident. There were around 60,000 people who lived in that place, and it dropped to 6,000 people after the displacement and moving out due to the deeds of Saddam. The marshlands of southern Iraq faced a lot and went through different phases of destruction. In 2016, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization listed the marshland of southern Iraq as a World Heritage Site. The place got this position because of its history. When we look deep into history, we can see that it starts from the ancient garden. The marshlands belonged to the poor population who rebelled against the authoritative commands. They took their stand and did not let the authority. An $11 million project was initiated by the United Nations to destroy all kinds of obstructions, which prevented the water from flowing to the wetlands. Turkey and Syria had built huge dams to channel water. River Tigris and Euphrates are the main sources of water, and the water from there were diverted by these countries. People who lived near the marshlands were devastated by the rule of Saddam. They were given hope by the United Nations that the wetlands would be recovered in no time, but as the time came near, droughts hit the region completely. The people were in bad condition, as on repeat they went through many low phases. The same condition spread to southern Iraq, and this time an even larger group was affected by it. The marsh Arabs were in grave condition as they didn't know how to handle the situation. The wetlands became dry stream beds, and there were zero chances for the vegetation to prosper. The local lakes turned into dry sand and muddy terrain. Tourists looked at the place with amazement, as it was not the same as when they last visited. The places, which were the main tourist attractions, turned into dry land. The locals couldn't bear the heart-wrenching pain of the miserable situation. The farmers and fishermen had to opt for unrestricted use of chemicals to catch dishes. They even used chemicals as it was their sole livelihood. They were heavily dependent on it, and they had to take these grave measures to gain results in catching fish from this dry land. The Iraqi government believes that in no time the place will recover and be a biblical paradise, but the condition of the marshland is worsening day by day, due to the contamination of water due to the chemicals used by the people during their illegal practice of catching fish. Have you ever wondered where the Garden of Eden existed? Do you think anyone knows? Let us know in the comments.